Thank you for staying with us for the AM News. Let's start with some health-related matters. And public health expert with the Kumasi Center for Collaborative Research is warning of a third wave of COVID-19 in Ghana in the next 2 weeks. Dr. John Amwesi, who leads the Global Health and Infectious Disease Research Group of the KCCR and School of Public Health at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, explains there's been a minor surge in cases over the past 2 weeks in Africa, which usually would lead to an explosion. Dr. Amwesi says for Ghana, a lot will depend on how we handle the situation and how successful we get with the vaccination exercise, adding that we're currently sitting on a time bomb if things remain the way they are.
If you look at the COVID numbers in Africa, it is clear that over the past 2 weeks, there is a minor surge. Now, if you understand how COVID moves, there is always this minor surge and then an explosion. Every part of the world has experienced a third wave, and it starts just like this. We had our first, we had our second. What on earth makes us think that we cannot and will not have our third? It will interest you to know that about a week ago, I called some highly placed figures in this country and said to them that, look, from what I see from where I sit, and I happen to be privy to various pieces of data which are not in the public domain, not only in this country, but also in other parts of Africa. From what I see, I do foresee a third wave happening in the next 2 weeks or by the end of this month. All right. Now, a lot will depend on a number of factors, which is how much vaccination we can get done. There might be a little saving grace in there, which would be perhaps a proportion of people in Ghana who may have been exposed and still have antibodies to SARS-CoV-2. And this we really do not know. There are some conservative estimates based on work that we have done, that has been done, including work that my team has done, which I cannot put out right now, which suggests that, well, the numbers may be quite high. And so, you know, the vaccination numbers we need to reach to arrive at herd immunity might actually be much lower than we think, which would be very good. But again, all this is not yet been fully calculated and determined, and we're not pursuing all this as a clear agenda. Moreover, if we want vaccination to give us the best bang for the buck, then it needs to be done really, really quickly. We're doing our best there, but the vaccines are just not there. So it's just not going to happen very quickly. This is very obvious. So when you look at all these together and look at what's happening in Africa, what's happened elsewhere, it tells you that we are sitting on a time bomb.
Meanwhile, the minority in Parliament is calling for a bipartisan parliamentary probe into reports Ghana is buying COVID-19 vaccines from Russia at almost 100% the original price. Norwegian newspaper VG is reporting that Ghana is buying Sputnik vaccines that cost $10 per dose at $19 per dose. The paper alleges one of the intermediaries negotiating the deal is wanted by Norwegian police for alleged financial crimes. Ranking member on Parliament's Health Committee, Kwabena Minta-Kando, alleges some government officials are trying to profit from the COVID-19 pandemic.
I would want to satisfy myself as a ranking member, and as a minority group, we have to satisfy ourselves to get to know the truth of the matter. And so we will call for the agreement, and then we will, if we are not satisfied, we will call for an independent investigation into the matter, because the minister himself is complicit in this matter. So we will call for a bipartisan investigation into this matter. And this is a very serious issue if it turns out to be true. Very, very serious matter.
Why do you say it's a very serious matter?
It's a serious matter because it borders on the health of the people. It borders on a pandemic. And it breaches most of our rules and regulations in this country. You understand? So it's not a small issue at all.
Couldn't it be that it's going for the 19 million, well, the $19 per dose instead of the $10? Probably because of the unavailability of it on the international market.
Well, what is important is that you need to come back to Parliament to inform us, for us to agree and approve. And what we have also picked is that from the source of Sputnik vaccine, we are not supposed to sell it more than $10 per dose. That is what we are picking. And so, Joseph, let's take our time and take it one after the other and then follow this matter to the very bottom of it.
To the extent that the search-sheet individual who was allegedly involved in the Ameri deal is part of this same process which is now blowing up. How worrying otherwise is that?
You begin to shiver when you hear such names because of their records. And if you read the story even indicates that there are people who are even wanted. I don't know if you have taken your time to read the story. So there are people who are even wanted by the police in Norway.
Now, for the first time in Ghana, doctors at the Ridge Hospital are gearing up to separate a set of identical male twins who were born conjoined at the head. The groundbreaking separation process is expected to last between 12 and 18 months, and the twins who were born 2 months ago are not expected to be discharged from hospital before their second birthday. Super Morning Show host Contraband traveled to a small township on the Nsawam Road to meet the family of the Bansa Siamese twins and to discover where they will be living after they are surgically separated.
We live in one room and we are also plenty in the room. We sleep half side and our things to are half side. When they give light off, the room gets hot.
A small 3-meter square room with one bed and no ceiling. This is the hot, cramped space in which Samuel Ado has lived with his wife Justine Bansa and 3 children for the past 17 years. Almost a year ago, they discovered that they were expecting another baby. The family was excited but worried about their living conditions. Imagine their shock on delivery day when a last-minute scan showed they were actually having twins.
I'm going to hospital, but they did told me I'll do a scan twice, but they didn't see that it is twins. So the day that I was born, them before the doctor said, oh, my stomach is too big, so I should go for another scan. The time that I went there, they said it is only one. And the doctor said, no, if it is one, I can't give birth, so they will do me CS. And I don't like CS, so I said no. If they have told me that if I didn't like CS, they will transfer me to Kolebu. And I tell them that, okay, if it is like that, I'll do it. And the doctor sent me back again. So I should go for another scan again. The time that I went the second one, before they said that they are twins.
But the biggest bombshell was still to come. When Samuel and Justine's 4th and 5th children were born, Siamese twins, conjoined at the head.
When first like that, I was thinking, did I make something wrong or did I commit any crime or something like that? But the doctors told me that it happened. So it's not like an old mothers or somebody who do that thing to me. It has happened.
Now, Samuel and Justine are faced with the seemingly insurmountable challenge of finding no less than 3 million Ghana cedis to pay for the crucial surgery to separate their sons. For a carpenter and his seamstress wife, this is a tall order, to say the least.
The cost is quite expensive and very relative. When we did our search, this kind of cost between 1.5 million to 4.6 million dollars out there. And when we did the local cost to see, it came around 3 million Ghana cedis, which is almost $500,000.
Today, I have come to Midye on the Accra and Nsawam Road. I want to learn more about the family of these special babies and what hopes, if any, they have of raising the money needed for their surgery.
Almost 3 weeks I'm not working again because of the situation. How the condition is now, I can't work because my pressure is too high. The time that this thing happened, I've already spent all my money.
Samuel and Justine's 2 older children, Richard and Rebecca, are 22 and 15 years old, respectively. They tell me of the trauma on seeing their conjoined brothers for the first time and their hope that help will come.
When I saw them for the first time, I think it was a crime my mom and my dad committed. But after my mom explained everything, I saw that it was normal.
In fact, the first moment my father told me this, actually I don't believe him until I went there, then seeing the surrounding. In fact, it was a bit, I don't even know what to say. So we went to this one, the first time that I entered, when I saw that they were in pain, and in fact, it was so sorrowful, it was so emotional.
I'm worried. I'm worried that maybe we might lose one, or maybe we might lose the two.
As they say they can do it, I know they can do it with the help of the Lord. Everything can be possible.
So you have faith that
I have faith in God.
Well. The whole community is baffled by the twins' predicament, but they offer their support and all speak fondly of the family, even their landlady.
My former seven back.
I live with them as if they are my own children. They are good people. I even leave my keys with them whenever I travel.
That cause can't tell, but what me I know that maybe it will be a spiritual problem or nature.
We heard that they are twins, but they are joined together. We don't know what would have caused such a thing. I visited them at the hospital. The mother was crying. I told her not to worry. Everything's going to be all right. So she should cheer up.
The union of the Bansa twins has forged unity in this small community as they rise to support their own. Now, together, they hope the nation will unite in generosity as the race to find 3 million Ghana cedis for life-saving surgery begins. For JoyNews, my name is Kojo Yankson.
Well, let's move now to talk about the CK Tedham University of Technology and Applied Sciences, formerly the Navrongo campus of the University for Development Studies, which is set to introduce a School of Nursing and Midwifery, as well as a School of Medicine and Dentistry this year. According to the Vice-Chancellor, Professor Eric Magnus Wilmot, plans have also been set up for a Center for Irrigation and Aquaculture at an advanced stage with a view to expand it into a School of Agriculture in the near future. He spoke to JoyNews after a short ceremony to swear into office an audit committee for the institution. Correspondent Albert Sori reports from Navrongo.
The Navrongo campus of the University for Development Studies, UDS, is now known as the CK Tedham University of Technology and Applied Sciences, or CKT UTAS for short. This followed a decision by the president in consultation with stakeholders to name the university after Clement Kobindiwo Tedham, who was a co-founder of the Northern People's Party. President Nana Akufo-Addo, on June 22, 2019, the day CK Tedham was buried, announced that the UDS Navrongo campus would be given autonomous status and named the CK Tedham University for Technology and Applied Sciences. The institution, now autonomous, has hit the ground running. In February this year, the university held the investiture to swear in Professor Eric Magnus Wilmot as the Vice-Chancellor and Dr. Vincent Enum Ankama Lomote as the Registrar. An academic board and an audit committee for the CK Tedham University for Technology and Applied Sciences have also been put in place. Speaking to JoyNews after a short ceremony to swear in the audit committee of the university, Vice-Chancellor Professor Eric Magnus Wilmot revealed some of the immediate plans to move the CK Tedham University for Technology and Applied Sciences to another level.
We are taking it step by step, so we are saying that for this first year, we will move to get the School of Nursing and Midwifery, the School of Medicine and Dentistry in place, and then start the Center for Integrated Education and Aquaculture to eventually blow it out into a school of agric. And that is for this year.
He also envisions a future where small engine aeroplanes could be assembled at this university here in Navrongo.
Subsequent years, we will move into other areas. Our plan is that we could be doing aeronautic engineering here and be assembling, at our peak, be assembling small engine planes in Navrongo here. If you look at our campus carefully, it's not a very developed campus. This was the campus that was given to UDS, and UDS used as a campus. Now it is a full-fledged university, and we need to restructure this place. So, for instance, we know dedicated areas that are for academic session, those that are for hostel facilities and other facilities and all those things. So we are now moving towards that.
The university's audit committee, after its inauguration, will have oversight responsibility of the institution's financial reporting processes. Solomon Kambe is the chairman of the committee.
We are also mandated to offer advice and recommendations to management of this university on the governance processes, the internal control processes, risk management processes, and the legal and compliance requirements. Not all, we have a duty towards the internal audit unit of this university. We are mandated to ensure that the internal audit unit of the university functions effectively.
The CK Tedam University for Technology and Applied Sciences aims to become the citadel of science and technology education in northern Ghana. Reporting for Joy News, Albert Sori, Navrongo.
The brain behind Ghana's bamboo bicycles is asking Ghanaians to resort to using bicycles as a way of improving transportation-related accidents in Ghana. Beatrice Dapa says bicycles could also help with healthy living and weight loss. She was speaking at an event to mark World Bicycle Day.
Stated, we strongly believe that bicycle is a vehicle for positive change for environment, communities, and personal health and well-being. World Bicycle Day is the recognition and celebration of the powerful role that the bicycle are being made. We are honored to support this movement and help make the world a better place.
Also at the event was Acting Chief Director at the Ministry of Transport, Mabel Sego, who said government was going to support private initiatives that could boost bicycle riding in Ghana.
The ministry has and would continue with our collaborative effort to promote non-motorized transport and other safer street designs. We would continue to collaborate with relevant stakeholders and the private sector to lay the necessary infrastructure to increase the safety and convenience of cycling in the country. We must ensure that the culture of cycling is integrated into people's daily schedules as a means of commuting. Finally, cycling generates moderate physical activity. It is reliable and can help us stay fit. It is fun and a hassle-free way to move around. As we commemorate this day, I wish to urge all and sundry to build a culture of cycling to save the environment and maintain a healthy lifestyle.
And that's how we draw the curtains on AM News for the morning. But coming up, there's more action as we bring you the news review. Do stay. Hopefully you enjoyed that one. Kwame Eugene Obapa Christie Wayeria. He's done it already to wit, and let's all have faith. Thank you for staying with us up to this point where we delve into the newspapers, and it's a mountain we have to scale this morning, but we shall get through all of them. Let's start with the Daily Graphic now. So what I'm going to do is I'll walk you through the headlines, and afterwards I'll digest some of the most important stories, the most pertinent ones. Improving waste management. President commissions 126 trucks, first batch out of 500 by Zoom Lion. It's interesting because only yesterday I spotted one of them, so 500 of them by Zoom Lion. And you can see, if you have the papers, you can see on the front page President Akufo-Addo cutting the tape to commission the sanitation trucks in Accra. Unemployment could trigger extremism. That's according to the NCCE. It's a study that was actually conducted by the NCCE. And that is why today we're having that discussion with Kathleen Addy, a deputy chairperson or commissioner at the NCCE. Minister urges institutions to ensure refugee rights. That is also on page 16. When you get into the paper proper, you would find on page 5, South Africa's health minister sent on leave, and he's been placed on special leave by President Cyril Ramaphosa pending a corruption probe. Now, so this is how seriously matters are taken in South Africa. You would notice that over the years, they've been hit with scandal after scandal when it comes to corruption. The Gupta family, the former president, among others. It appears corruption is causing quite some havoc to that country, and they are taking it seriously. Eritrea blames U.S. for destabilization in Ethiopia's Tigray region. That's on page 5. The other international page, page 9, has UN court upholds Ratko Mladic's war crimes genocide convictions, and that's the former Bosnian Serb military chief. You can read more about that in the paper on page 9. But I cannot go without mentioning this one. Most international media portals were talking about it. President Emmanuel Macron slapped in the face, and you should have seen his face. The reaction, not one of fear, but one of shock at what had happened. So, in a nutshell, French President Emmanuel Macron got slapped in the face on an official visit to the southeast of France. In a video circulating on social media, Monsieur Macron, if you like, is seen walking up to a barrier on a train to L'Hermitage outside the city of Valence. And that is where a man in a green T-shirt actually slapped him. Let's go to the middle spread of the Daily Graphic now. And it says, Domahene calls for more investment in agriculture and agri-business. And Osu fishers say reconsider mode of premixed fuel distribution. On the back page of the paper, government to renovate old dilapidated basic schools. That's according to the Education Minister, Dr. Yao Osei Educhum. And Methodist Church launches tree planting campaign. And don't we all need those? I think there's a drive to plant some 5 million trees in a day. So that also yet to see the light of day, but something that would do a lot of good to our country. You remember how many years ago was it that we were talking about our forest cover being depleted by about 60% year on year? The Ghanaian Times newspaper now, efforts to ensure clean Ghana. Government unveils 500 trucks. We've already mentioned that. 4 institutions support Green Ghana project with 520,000 Ghana cedis. And that's what I'm talking about. Ghana not immune from acts of terrorism. That's according to the NCCE. SC, that is the Supreme Court, quashes High Court order on the hashtag Fix the Country protest. That is also there. When you go to the middle spread of that paper, it makes mention of some of those stories from the headlines. On the back page, Minister updates Parliament on road projects. I'm talking about Sector Minister Kwesi Amwako Atta. Republic Press now, and Parliament records new case of COVID-19. And that is a bit of a worry. You can check out that story on page 9. Dr. Clement Apak borrowing to finance free SHS and matters are rising. Now, Fix the Country gets green light, and I'll be bringing you details of that story. PDS deal messes Mercer. I like the way Republic Press usually plays on words. You would find those in some UK newspapers mostly. I think I remember one from back then where they were talking about Howard's Fishery Ministry, something of the sort, getting drowned at sea. So they like to play on words. But this one, PDS deal messes Mercer as Appointments Committee freezes his approval. But we also know that late yesterday, the minority did come out to say that, well, they were conducting some checks on voting on the said day on the deal and whether he was involved in voting, basically to find out whether he was disinterested in the matter and whether he had showed any loyalty towards, the acceptance of the deal, which then could compromise his situation somewhat. NPP blames Sir John's family for disregard of COVID-19 protocols at funeral. And I find this a bit risible, laughable, because these officials, I mean, it's something that I feel never should have happened. Looking at the sort of personalities we've had there, even the commander-in-chief of our armed forces, I feel there should have been better coordination. And now there's a whole lot being spoken about. The GMA has come out to talk about it. Occupy Ghana has been speaking about it. And I just want to chip in this for all of us to think about it. If we talk about super spreader events, well, that is one that we had right there. And if we say, and I'm just sharing my opinion here, if the Ghana Police Service, for example, is saying that, well, fix the country, even now on the back of the Supreme Court ruling, they are saying, well, it's not a broad, ruling that encompasses everything. And we're also going to pursue certain angles of it still in court. I think it's the 14th of the month. If we're saying that we're preventing such gatherings because they could be super spreader events like the Fix the Country, demonstrations where, by the way, it is constitutionally guaranteed for people to demonstrate when they want to. There are COVID restrictions, of course, I do accept. But if we're talking about super spreader events and we can have the like of what we saw at Sir John's funeral, then where is the balance, really? So a lot of food for thought on that subject. Is it our fault that you don't have trusted people in your government? Sami Jemfi jabs Akufo-Addo. That's in the middle spread of the paper. And government appointees must focus on transforming society. Someone who has become pretty, well, should I say, talkative in recent times, Razak Kojo-Poku, a member of the New Patriotic Party, he's been urging government on that one. We are our worst enemies, Education Minister on free SHS. On the back page of the paper, Central Region, 3 dead in gory accident at Dunkwa. Ayamfuti. That is another sad development. Yesterday, as I hosted, members from the NRSA and the MTTD, we spoke about these matters, delving into the problem and how we're seeing more and more carnage on our roads. And that's just another one right there. Let's take a quick look now at the Daily Guide newspaper. On the front page, President unveils 101 waste trucks. Then there's how coup plotters planned to oust NPP government. And so we've been getting more details of what exactly went into the planning and how, the national security apparatus had been monitoring these people, including military officers, including a police officer, including some other people like Dr. McPalm, and how they had finally concluded that it was time to, let the trap catch those who purportedly had anything to do with it. So that one I'll be bringing you some details of. South African woman gives birth to 10 babies, and a lot of people have been talking about this one. You could see in there a picture of the president, the pregnant Gosiame Tamara Sitole. And the national security Galamsey boys get 350,000 Ghana cedi bail each. Those are some of the very prominent stories there. When you turn to the middle spread, Amake Abrebese unveiled as brand influencer for ZPay, and Amake, our very own. And there's also WizKid rebrands to Big Wiz. So I guess he's been a kid for long, kind of like Lil Bow Wow becoming Bow Wow. So he's now Big Wiz instead of WizKid. But I guess a lot of people will always remember him for being WizKid. On the back page, Nana Court's Chelsea star to play for Ghana. And I'm talking about Callum James Hudson-Odoi, who on Monday paid a courtesy call on President Akufo-Addo at the Jubilee House. But it appears our national teams are not faring too well. At all levels in the matches we've played recently, things have not gone well at all. So I guess we're going to need some boosts. The Daily Dispatch, there must be a balance on security and human rights. That's according to Kandapa. And I totally agree. I just wait to see the implementation. Ghana's new law, which will allow legal farming of wheat. And then Ghana's next phase of waste management is conversion of trash to energy. Alleged coup plot, court told how accused persons were secretly filmed. That's with the Daily Dispatch. When you go to the Finder now, it says, John Bwedu denies involvement in any mining activities, threatens defamation, suits the General Secretary of the NPP. And he's been in the picture recently with some accusations leveled against him that he himself is involved in mining activities. But he's come out to debunk that firmly. Over 20,000 customers of defunct First Fund demand 170 million Ghana cedi locked up in cash. Accra Tema residents positive about economic improvement. That's according to the IEA. Big boost for Clean Ghana agenda as President unveils that, stash of, 101 waste trucks belonging to Zoom Lion. And MPA 3 others support Green Ghana project with 520,000 Ghana cedis. Let's do a few more papers as we wrap. BNFT, COVID-19 lowers gold production by 12% in 2020, but sector holds firm to emerge economy's lead export earner. And Clocksag asks government to return 58 million Ghana cedi pension funds. There's also Move Secure curbing mobile money fraud. I believe the final paper I'll do is the Daily Statesman. GSS assures all tribes will be captured in 2021 population census, and 200,000 companies to go off companies register. You can find out why. The final story there, scholarships boss advocates local medical training. So let's dig into the papers proper. Let's find out what the details are of some of the stories that I've been making mention of. And we can start on the sanitation front. I believe the regional minister was here yesterday. President commissions 126 trucks, first batch out of 500 by Zoom Lion. And the quest to enhance sanitation services in the country and thereby improve the health of the people received a tremendous push yesterday when Zoom Lion Ghana Limited unveiled 101 waste management trucks and 25 disinfection trucks for deployment in the metropolitan, municipal and district assemblies. The trucks will be used to cart waste from business districts and other communities to landfill sites and waste management facilities. In addition, the vehicles will help the ongoing disinfection exercise of spaces and institutions which was rolled out following the outbreak of COVID-19. President Akufo-Addo said the government remained committed to achieving its development objective as well as the UN Sustainable Development Goals, which include health under Goal 3, waste and sanitation under Goal 6, decent work and economic growth under Goal 8, sustainable cities and communities under Goal 11, and climate change under Goal 13. So we may not necessarily be going at the pace that we would have wanted, but at least some strides being made, and it's a positive development there. Let's quickly go to page 16, where there are some pretty interesting stories, one of which we'll be delving into better later on the show. It has to do with this. Unemployment could trigger extremism. That's according to an NCCE study. What's your take? Well, let's dig into the details. A new study by the National Commission for Civic Education says the country is not immune to violent extremism in spite of the appreciable level of peace among citizens. Quoting here, high unemployment rate, particularly among the youth, was found to have implications for Ghana's risk and threat of violent extremism, the report said. According to the study, unemployed youth were the segment of the population highly susceptible to be recruited to perpetrate acts of violence, while political actors were perceived to be the main sponsors of violent extremism. So you put that side by side. Young people, sometimes gullible, impressionable, and of course with no jobs to do. You know how they say an idle hand is the devil's workshop? Well, what happens when you've not provided jobs for the teeming youth? That is quite a problem we're facing in this country. Per the study, it goes on to say that That is a factor in there because they are susceptible to violent extremism, and even more of a concern that the main sponsors of violent extremism tend to be political actors. And you know why I'm concerned about that? Because when you look at our political party militias, the juntas, all those groups that we've heard of from both sides, especially our main political parties, they are supposed to have been disbanded, but we all know things that we've heard even in the recent past. It makes me worry, because if our own political elements, whether within the country or outside the country, inter or intra, are behind such things, then we have a lot to actually take a look at. Now, like I mentioned, this was contained in the 2021 NCCE report on the risk and threat analysis of violent extremism in 10 border regions of our country. And we'll bring you more details of that as we host Kathleen Addy, a deputy chairperson at the NCCE. But there's also this story that I'd like us to get into. Minister urges institutions to ensure refugee rights, and the Minister for the Interior, Mr. Ambrose Derry, has called for collaboration among partner institutions in refugee protection to ensure that the rights of refugees as well as the security of the state are not compromised. The minister said due to the adverse impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, most countries were employing restrictive policies as a means of enhancing security. However, he said, in spite of the crisis, human rights standards needed to be upheld. And I totally agree with the minister on that bit. Let's move to page 32. And the Domahene has been calling for more investment in agriculture and agri-business, especially in these times when COVID-19 has hit. It has impacted agriculture across the world, across Africa, and we have not been left out. Just fortunate that the impact has not been as bad as in certain parts of the world. And the Omanhene of the Doma traditional area, Osajifo Osiadeyo Ajimambedu II, has urged the government to consider investing more in the agricultural and agribusiness sectors to help boost the economy. I believe that suffices. The call has been made, and we shall see what the response will be. But reconsider mode of premixed fuel distribution. That's Osu fishermen to government. And some fishermen in Osu, Accra, have entreated the government to reconsider the mode of distribution of subsidized premixed fuel at landing beaches. They claim that the majority of local fishermen who were the ultimate beneficiaries of the fuel did not get the product since those placed in charge of the distribution were not fair to them. This is an age-old problem. It's not one that is now starting. And sometimes it baffles me in this country how we can have problems for so long and not be able to, I don't know whether it's the switch from administration to administration, but not be able to nail the problem on the head and resolve it, once and for all. It appears we always skirt the issues, circumvent them, and we come back to the same thing. It's like the problems with our roads, where you have roads. Someone was telling me only yesterday, a new road constructed just about 6 months ago has deteriorated to certain levels. When are we ever going to learn? Well, that's it with the Daily Graphic newspaper. Let's take a look at the Ghanaian Times newspaper now. And a story of interest for all of us. Supreme Court quashes High Court order on Fix the Country protest. Now, I believe you all know the backdrop to this, and the police, the Ghana Police Service, some say sneaking to the courts to seek that injunction. And here we are. When you turn to page 3, the Supreme Court yesterday quashed the order of the High Court barring the planned Fix the Country street protest. A 5-member panel of justices or judges of the Supreme Court, presided over by Justice Yawapao, said the order of the High Court was done in error. Other members of the panel were Justices Mariam Owusu, Loveless Johnson, Clemens Honyanuga, and Professor Henrietta Mensah-Bonsu. Consequently, the Apex Court set aside the High Court order as same was quashed. Meanwhile, another motion seeking to injunct the street protest pending before the High Court is expected to be heard on June the 14th. And we know of the backdrop on May 6th, the Ghana Police Service securing that ex parte injunction. Question is, now that the Supreme Court, the Apex Court, has quashed this and said, well, stating categorically that the order of the Accra High Court was actually in error, we'll see what else will transpire in that court, the High Court, on June the 14th. Whether it will differ on the other matter in any way from the angling that the Supreme Court has given thus far. But something else of interest, even as we were talking about cannabis yesterday, weed, and whether it should be legalized for recreational purposes, police intercept 892 slabs of weed. And the Ashaiman Divisional Police Command last Friday arrested 4 persons and intercepted a vehicle transporting about 892 slabs of dried leaves suspected to be Indian hemp. The suspects, Godwin Agbesi, 29, driver Boniface Ababa, 31, Kwame Akwete, 31, and Samuel Jandu, 30, were on board the vehicle with registration number GR3913G with the inscription, "Only God." So the car had the inscription, "Only God," but within it was only weed. The dried leaves wrapped with black polythene bags were allegedly concealed in secret compartments behind the driver and passenger seats and inside the cargo compartment. So I could say good riddance now that they've been busted. I just want to know, though, what is going to happen to the 892 slabs of weed. It's just a harmless, innocuous question, suggestion I'm putting there. Hopefully we can see a public, just as we are burning excavators, could we see public destruction in whichever way of the weed? I'm not trying to be mischievous. We have a lot of history in this country. We know of so many things. Narcotics turning to kokonte and all of that has happened right here in this country. So it would also be good to build public confidence, to see what happens to the seized contraband. What is going to happen to it? Ayo. Borrowing to fund free SHS is unsustainable. That is according to Dr. Apak. That's on page 4 of the Ghanaian Times. And the Deputy Ranking Member on Education Committee of Parliament, Dr. Clement Apak, has said borrowing to fund government's free SHS is not sustainable. We all agree on that one. But he says indications by a Minister of State designate at the Finance Ministry, Charles Edubuahin, that Ghana would sell sustainable bonds for up to $1 billion by July was not the way to go. And that is what he's been saying on that matter thus far. There's also this one on page 4. MPP blames Sir John's family for disregard of COVID-19. And when I say page 4, I'm talking about Republic Press newspaper. Let's quickly get to that story. Well, it appears page 4 is not really page 4, so let's get to page 3, actually, which has the story. The national chairman of the ruling NPP, Freddie Blay, has called on Ghanaians not to blame the party for the blatant disregard of the COVID-19 protocols at the funeral of Kwejo Owusu Efrie, popularly known as Sir John. According to him, though senior members of government were in attendance, it is the family of the former General Secretary that organized the funeral. In an interview on Asasi Radio, Mr. Blay said the family assured them that the protocols would be followed before the funeral. So let me ask you this, Mr. Blay. I went to be a master of ceremonies at an event, just a few days ago, and I had made it clear, me as a media person, because I know what should be done. I had made it clear to the person, the celebrant, that they had to observe the protocols and that if not, I wouldn't even be at the event. And when I got there at the event very early, I monitored to see whether the cocktail tables and everything, that the numbers were not going to spill over and exceed what was expected. So that everything would be coordinated, so no one would get into any trouble, for example. So we're getting to an event, and we see what is happening, but it's the blame of the family. And all of us who went there, we didn't see what was happening, and we just also participated. Well, good reasons, right? Very good reasons. Let's check out some more stories, and how about we do this one on page 3. So National Security Galamsey boys gets 350,000 bail each. And the Kofredia Circuit Court B in the Eastern Region, presided over by Her Honor Mercy Adi Kote, yesterday granted a bail of 350,000 cedis each to the 32 alleged national security suspects who were arrested for engaging in illegal mining, popularly called as Galamsey, in the Etiwa forest. In addition to the 350,000 Ghana cedis each, accused person is to provide 2 sureties, one to be justified as part of the bail terms. And the case has been adjourned to July the 7th, 2020. 2021. On the same page, though, we have the story about how coup plotters planned to oust the NPP government. And as it has emerged now that the 10 persons being tried for allegedly plotting to overthrow President Akufo-Addo's NPP government started their nefarious, in quote, activities as far back as 2018, when the government was only about 2 years in office after winning the 2016 elections. The official trial of the coup plotters commenced yesterday at an Accra High Court, where Colonel Isaac Amponsa, the director in charge of operational intelligence at the Defense Intelligence Department of the Ghana Armed Forces, was the first prosecution witness, that is PW1. You can grab more details of that on page 3 of that newspaper. I'll do maybe one final story before we do myjoyonline.com. And this one interests me. Hopefully it will interest you too. It's on page 11 of the newspaper. Ghana's next phase of waste management is conversion of trash to energy, and that would be great indeed. Now, the President, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, has announced that the next phase of Ghana's waste management is to convert trash to energy. He indicated this would add to Ghana's energy capacity and also ensure the realization of a clean Ghana agenda. According to him, the government has provided an enabling environment through the public-private partnership to make this work. Of course, that's on the back of those trucks that have been made available for sanitation purposes, 101 of them out of the planned 500. A sneak peek at this wouldn't be bad. I just have to, I'll just quickly do this one. It's about the South African woman who gave birth to 10 babies. Nearly skipped my mind. And a 37-year-old woman from Gauteng in Pretoria, South Africa, has delivered 10 babies, believe it or not. The mother of the decuplets, Gosiame Tamara Sitole, becomes the new Guinness World Record holder a few weeks after Malian Halima Cisse gave birth to 9 babies in Morocco. So 9 and 10 back to back. Some 2 minutes before I have to run away from here, let's use the next minute to wrap up on myjoyonline.com, and I'm out. So appointments committee unblocks Ejapa Mercer's approval as Deputy Energy Minister, and that is the latest on that. Minority calls for bipartisan probe into purchase of Sputnik vaccines. Let's roll up a bit and get some more of those stories. So we're still on myjoyonline.com. If we could roll up a bit to get some more of the stories. Disregard calls to embark on demonstration by Fix the Country conveners. Police urges public. Minority gives government 7 days to reconstitute expired university councils. Then there's shortage in gas supply caused Monday's power outage. That's according to Gridco. Many fear dead in gory accident at Ifija, Kwabere. Last 2 stories. Akufo-Addo administration has created 3.8 million jobs. Deputy Minister Designate for Employment and Labor Relations. And residents burn fetish priest's dwelling over murder of 12-year-old boy. You can check out more stories on myjoyonline.com. But this is where we draw the curtains on the news review. Up next, we have sports. Do stay.
And before the senior national team lost to Morocco, their younger brothers, the Black Meteors, also lost 4-0 to Japan in their second friendly against the Blues. From football, let's do rugby now, because the Ghana Rugby Football Union has officially removed from office Herbert Mensah as president of the union. Joy Sports reported last month that Mr. Mensah will be removed from office on June 8 at a special general meeting. The meeting, which was held on Tuesday morning, had all 6 members with voting rights voting in favor of the motion to remove the former chief executive officer of Kumasi Asante Kotoko from office. That is according to a statement available to us. Vice Chairman James Nunu will act as leader of the union, but the position of president remains vacant until such a time that an elective assembly will be organized on September 20. The removal of Mr. Mensah follows a period of impasse in the governance of the rugby union that stretched over the period from 25th April 2021 till the 8th of June, which was yesterday, when Mr. Mensah was officially removed from office. James Nunu was subsequently appointed as chairman of the board at a meeting of board members that was directed by the SGM to do so. The presidency will be left vacant until the next annual general meeting. That is the statement put out there by the board of the Ghana Rugby Football Union, officially removing Herbert Mensah from office as the leader of the Rugby Football Union. And this is what they said. At a duly constituted special general meeting of members of Ghana Rugby Football Union held on 8 June 2021, members resolved to remove Mr. Herbert Mensah as president and board member of the Ghana Rugby with immediate effect. At the foot of that statement, they did mention the people who signed it, and they clearly indicated that Mr. James Nunu was the man who was going to take charge. Now let's go on Zoom now and speak to James Nunu, who is now going to be the acting leader of Rugby Union until September, when an elective general assembly will be organized. Mr. Nunu, thanks for joining us. First of all, how did you arrive at the decision of having the motion passed by the members who were present at the General Assembly?
Thank you very much, JoyNews, and I'm most grateful for this interview. First of all, let me make one correction that the statement you read was from members, not from Ghana board, not from the board of Ghana Rugby. It's from members, and the members are regional associations and grouper. So, as you said, this impasse has gone on since about 2-3 months ago. So members of the association, i.e. 2 members from Bupa, 2 members from Gara, 2 members from St. West, had an SGM to make sure that the SGM carries the petition of Mr. Bupa, as well as the club owners. In fact, if I should put it this way, the club owners and all other stakeholders met and took that decision, as well as Grouper.
Okay.
We had a meeting. We invited Mr. Herbert Mensah to respond to the allegations that were made by Grouper. We gave Mr. Herbert Mensah 72 hours to respond. Mr. Herbert Mensah failed. We extended the hearing to additional 72 hours. He failed. So members of Ghana Rugby, that is the stakeholders, the owners of Ghana Rugby, decided that since Mr. Herbert Mensah was unable to defend himself, they had to go to the SGM and then take those decisions. Okay, just a quick one.
You have been asked to take charge. Have you, one way or the other, taken in the mammoth of responsibility that has been handed to you, considering the fact that there have been an impasse for a period of almost, say, 2 months, and there's the possibility that members or, say, partners will lose confidence in Ghana Rugby?
I don't think partners will lose confidence in Ghana Rugby. As I speak to you, the board of Ghana Rugby is still there. It is only Mr. Herbert Mensah who has been removed as the president and then the board chair. Apart from that, all stakeholders are intact. Of course, during this period, a lot of things had happened. And I believe it's an appeal I will make to all our stakeholders that they should stay with us, they should remain calm, and everything. In fact, a solid foundation has been laid, and we are ever ready to build on it. All that we are saying is that rugby will not die, with or without Herbert Mensah.
Okay.
And
so what different? What is the different thing that Mr. James Nunu is bringing on board on the interim until the elective General Assembly is organized?
The different thing I'm bringing on board is good governance, accountability, and also make sure that players have the opportunity to ply their trade outside. That the local league is respected, and then a lot of people who play in the local league are complaining. If you are not invited into the national team, then you are out of the equation. So what I'm bringing on board is the local league should be managed very well, as well as the national team, so that going forward there will be a lot of where players will have the opportunity to go outside and market themselves to make living. So that
my final question before I let you go.
Person would have to put his hand into his pocket to feed players. Players will have to learn how to make money from rugby.
My final question before I let you go. Would you be contesting for the position of president come the General Assembly to elect a new leader on September 20?
We have not gotten there. When we get there, we shall cross it. At the moment, my task is to steer the affairs of Ghana Rugby till then. So when that time comes, a decision will be made.
This is the AM show. Welcome back. It's not looking too good for our national teams, but that was sports. Let's move on now to business. On Wednesdays, as usual, we come your way with AM Business, courtesy of EcoBank, the Pan-African Bank. Now, in today's episode, it gets interesting. U.S. Ambassador to Ghana, Stephanie S. Sullivan, says though the scourge of the coronavirus slowed down trade activities, bilateral ties with Ghana have not waned. There's more in this interaction with Joy Business, Charles Aite.
Madam Ambassador, welcome to the program.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
All right. So, of course, you presented your credentials to the president in 2019, and with that came the urge to deepen bilateral ties.
So we got a lot done before the pandemic, and we've gotten a lot done since the pandemic. Human beings are very adaptive, and we worked on both sides of the Atlantic, in the official and with private sector and local communities, to pivot to virtual engagement, doing things we never thought we would be able to do and remaining connected. So a very slight drop in bilateral trade, mostly because of a reduction in oil exports from Ghana. But otherwise, interest remains strong in the private sector in investing in Ghana, and that's a huge priority for our mission here. We have several U.S. government agencies based here that are really focused on the economic agenda with trade and development, investment. I can go into a lot more detail if you like, but I would just like to say that the enthusiasm has not waned, and we have found new ways to interact.
But I believe that COVID-19 twitched a bit your very quest to deepen bilateral ties, and this is no news. I mean, we've seen it in terms of the volumes of trade between, not just Ghana and the United States, but around the world. So if you could paint us that picture, that stark picture of how COVID-19 disrupted issues.
Well, initially, first, I would want to say that Ghana did a really tremendous job very early on, and the actions that were taken, difficult as they were early, have had lasting benefits, to the point that, we are sitting here having this conversation without masks. And it really built on decades of strong bilateral partnership between Ghana and the United States in strengthening public health systems, for example. So rather than pulling back, we kind of doubled down on our whole of government and whole of America, whether U.S. government programs, private sector. The American Chamber of Commerce in Ghana has a list of all of the contributions from the private sector. So whether it was technical assistance, supporting contact tracing, in importing medical supplies, PPE. Certainly the U.S. has funded, the largest funder of the COVAX facility, $2 billion already, with $2 billion more to come. There's just been a lot of activity, so I wouldn't say that it has slowed our bilateral relationship. I think when you look at it, a friend in need is a friend indeed. Exactly. I would say it's even deepened our relationship.
But even speaking of the various programs, we do know that some monetary, support came in. You rightly stated the COVAX, support. But if you could quantify for us how much US did pump into Ghana in terms of interventions, management practices, various, measures to curb the spread of COVID-19.
Sure. Our AID program, U.S. Agency for International Development, dedicated about $30 million in different sectors, whether specifically in the health sector, agriculture, education, and just for example, we did with the Ministry of Education this radio learning program in 11 languages to help kids continue their learning through the radio when the schools were closed for so long. We are working with farmers on supply chains and logistics, supporting some of the fishing communities who were hardest hit in the pandemic with some cash transfers, and also the health sector, whether it's Department of Defense flying in, testing supplies and medical equipment. We mentioned the capacity building and training, working with Noguchi, working very closely with the Ghana Health Service. So it's really been, it hasn't been a vacation, but we remain very engaged. Great.
One, key part of your partnership with us has to do with your interventions in our power sector, of course, through the Ghana Power Compact. Of course, we're looking at about over $300 million in terms of helping the government of Ghana improve the distribution and even the supply chains of energy. Help us understand, and the 5 compacts of this agreement, how the returns has also been so far. Any updates on what we're missing?
Well, this is an area where supply chain and COVID protocols ended up slowing down the progress a little bit, but the 2 kind of centerpiece facilities that are being upgraded through the Power Compact are the Pokowase and the Kasua bulk supply points. Exactly. And so the distribution and the networks and the transmission lines, all of these will be more reliable, steadier, and that will help Ghana continue to shine brightly.
So any updates regarding the correspondence you're getting from the Ministry of Energy regarding the 2 substations and the work they've done to ensure value for money?
Oh, well, in fact, we've been very gratified to see recently many VIP visitors have gone out to inspect the works. I was privileged to be at the groundbreaking at Pokowase. I even got to, drive a piece of heavy machinery for the first time.
You drove it yourself?
Not very far, but so yeah, things are proceeding apace. Pokowase actually is largely completed and handed over to Gridco, and so things have, again, people have adapted. People figured out a way to have the workplace be safe during COVID, and managing that while also dealing with the global logistical supply chain challenges have been quite something to overcome. But I think the results will soon be very obvious for people to see.
Help us understand the prospects for the Ghana Power Compact, the future. What does the future hold for this particular compact?
So the future holds a successful completion, at which we will be very happy to celebrate a brighter power supply for all of Ghana that will help not just individuals and their households, but hospitals, schools, businesses. Everyone really relies on having a steady supply of power that can help boost Ghana's economic growth as well.
Well, even as we're having this discussion, I know you're a lover of the earth, and even somewhere in April you visited the Ashanti region where you reiterated the US's commitment to ensuring a safer environment for the people. Have you, has what is going on with our forest belts and river borders regarding illegal mining come to your notice?
Sure. Galamsey was an issue 20 years ago, but I think it's kind of on steroids now. And it's not 3 people in a village with a pan in the river. It's this heavy machinery. It's a lot of deforestation that's associated with it. And it breaks my heart when I look at how the Ancobra River has just become so much more polluted from when we were here 20 years ago. And so I think it's important to be in a position to be the steward of the environment. We don't inherit the land from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children.
How are you forwarding correspondence to ensure that societies, the environment is safe, even as you inject so much money in ensuring that societies are safe, in Ghana specifically?
Well, if you're talking about, let's say one of the great things about American private sector businesses is that they're environmentally responsible. And they always build in sustainability. There's a large gold mine, Newmont. They have a very strong environmental component to what they're doing. And so these are the kinds of leading by example that we look to in the private sector, but also there's a lot in terms of policy frameworks, multilateral organizations, and also frankly, enforcement of existing laws.
Let's talk about entrepreneurship, because I know that you're a very key player in this whole field. You visited so many SMEs. The last time I saw you riding a bamboo bicycle, and I've also seen you, as you rightly stated, the very arts around this place made by Ghanaian entrepreneurs. First of all, how competitive do you feel that SMEs are in Ghana?
Well, let's talk a little bit about the Africa Continental Free Trade
Exactly, because we're going to present your submission to the African Continental Free Trade. But even before Continental Free Trade came, we had issues, stark issues that most entrepreneurs face. And I believe you have been in the forefront of surmounting most of these challenges.
Well, let me just say that I take my hat off to entrepreneurs, because they have to have a fire in the belly. They have imagination, creativity, innovation, and very important, determination and persistence. So entrepreneurs throughout the world are driven from within to create solutions to problems in their environment. And so they will try and try again. Failure happens along the way. People learn from that. They adapt. They come up with new things. So some of the tools that we have to work with entrepreneurs, because we're really focused on a private sector, trying to strengthen private sector relationships, boost that private sector that is going to be the engine of growth into the future. And who is the future but the youth? So we have a lot of youth programs that focus on entrepreneurship. Women, very hardworking and creative, many of whom pivoted their line of production to meet new demands that came with the pandemic. We have a great program. I think we have about 200 graduates so far. The Academy for Women Entrepreneurs, that is, it started as a mix of an online and in-person mentoring program to help, bring very new SMEs, mostly S, into a stronger business position with marketing plans and kind of very basic things. I think there's another facility that came as a consequence of the visit of then Secretary of Commerce Wilbur Ross, July 2018. It's a $300 million loan facility for small, medium enterprises for loan guarantees to import U.S. products and services that will help them go maybe from good to great. Because all the big companies, think about the tech companies, any company you've heard of started somewhere. And so, they say a mighty oak grows from a single acorn. Exactly. And so it's really important to nurture the entrepreneurs. And I know that the government of Ghana is looking at additional ways to make credit available to help boost the private sector, which is very key.
Well, with the private sector comes the potential of exports, and under exports, we do know that the Africa Growth Opportunity Act, AGOA, has also seen so many businesses upscale in their export lines. Help me understand the state of AGOA as we speak now.
Well, AGOA is now in force in the United States into 2025. So entrepreneurs don't have to worry, will AGOA be renewed from year to year? So that gives us certain predictability and certainty. There are about 1,800 different products that can be exported from Ghana duty-free into the United States. Some of these are in the agriculture sector, some of them are in the textile sector. Petroleum is a big beneficiary of AGOA as well. So again, through the West Africa Trade Hub, people can access resources that will help them better understand how to participate in AGOA.
We can't end this discussion without bringing in the coming on board of United Airlines. You were there, you saw them come in, the colorful, welcome. How does this impact, in your point of view, how does this impact trade patterns and investment between both lines?
So it's just one more bridge across the Atlantic. It's a very, I haven't been on this particular flight, but they have the state-of-the-art Boeing Dreamliner, and it restores a link directly from Accra to Washington. The national capital area, and of course Delta is still here operating to New York. So from a government and a multilateral and business perspective, there's we have two gateways from Ghana directly into the United States. And I think it's not just United, but even during the pandemic, I went to inaugurate the new Domino's Pizza franchise. They let me make a pizza. I made the first pizza at the Domino's place at East Legon. Twitter, is coming.
Yeah, Twitter is also coming in.
And so Ghana is definitely on the radar screen in terms of an attractive investment environment, and we continue to work with Ghanaian policymakers on improving the investment climate. So the prospects are very bright.
Even as the prospects remain bright, I mean, what are you expecting in return in terms of, yes, you're investing so much, but the investment just can't go down the drain. You're definitely expecting some positive returns out of this.
So we aren't going to do it as the government. We want to help, sweep the path for the private sector to come in and have those robust relationships to really boost the economic growth of both countries. We want more jobs in Ghana. We want more jobs in the United States. More jobs for youth. There's so many potential opportunities in the tech sector, and things that someone who didn't grow up with a smartphone can't even imagine these apps, but they're apps that are making agriculture more interesting for the youth. There are apps that help with learning. There's just, it's a really exciting opportunity right now, and I think people are forced into the digital age because of the pandemic, and that's a good thing. So what are the returns? We expect a stronger bridge between Ghana and the United States, not just government to government, but business to business, and of course the continued people-to-people ties.
Madam Ambassador, we're so grateful that you joined us. Thank you very much once again.
My great pleasure, Charles. Thank you so much.
Do you understand any of the languages proper?
So how
are you going to say many thanks, Charles? And
oh, may not say P, Charles.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for staying with us on the AM show. And now we talk a matter that is very pertinent, violent extremism in Ghana. The NCC says people engage in the act to fight corruption, gain power, and sometimes as a response to underdevelopment. The NCC on Tuesday presented its findings on this at a stakeholders forum following a research conducted nationwide. Today, it's a one-on-one encounter with Kathleen Addy
Deputy Commissioner at the NCCE. And I'm smiling the way I am because it's been quite a while since I had this opportunity. Kathleen, it's good to see you again.
It's good to see you. Thank you.
It has been a while.
Yes,
so let's get into this bit. In 2020, you took up the survey concerning matters of concern to the ordinary voter, and a lot of issues, a pot of issues emerged. Why the study?
Well,
what was the rationale?
Right. Thank you very much, and good morning to your listeners. Well, the rationale for this study is just is a reflection of the times that we live in. If you look at the countries all around us, and in fact, what is going on globally across the world, with the emergence of non-state actors in many countries, even established countries that have more power, that have better resource security and all of that. The level of instability that is emerging suddenly in those countries. And then you bring it to our continent and see the level of instability on the continent for a few years now. If you remember the terrorist threats in Kenya and so on and so forth. And more recently, events in Nigeria, events in Niger and Mali, and most unfortunate events in our northern neighbor, Burkina Faso, where a good swathe of the entire country is now under the control of rebels, you know. So, and I mean, you remember there was an explosion, there was an attack in even Ivory Coast a couple of years ago. So looking at all of that, we realized that we're actually in a very vulnerable position in Ghana. We are blessed to have had relative stability over the years, and very little of these sorts of threats that occur in this manner of extreme terrorism. We haven't, fortunately, we have not experienced any such thing at the way other countries have in the sub-region. And we feel that it's very close to home now. I mean, you can't look at whatever happens in Nigeria has an impact on us. What is happening in Burkina Faso has an impact on us because there are implications for refugees streaming into the country. There are implications for even importing the rebellion into the country.
Right.
And all kinds of things. And we also...
Because you have some of these, and that's why it's pertinent that you were looking at our border areas, because sometimes there's a spillover from other countries into our countries, and when those elements get in, they foment their own kind of trouble.
Yes, and the international networks that fuel and fund these activities, these disturbances, you know, have a way of infiltrating borders. They don't come in with a bang. They come in very slowly. They come into communities along the borders. They identify vulnerable groups. They give them support, give them some services. They come as NGOs. They come as different kinds of religious institutions. They're just here to help. And then slowly, they sort of infiltrate communities and turn people to their side, and then arm people, and then the worst form of conflict is that sort of conflict whereby you can't even clearly identify your opponent. You know, if it's a conflict between countries, you know that this country is fighting you. You go to this and do your fight or whatever. Yeah. But these ones are actually very terrifying because it could be right there in your community. If you're in the border communities, it could easily be some people that you interact with all the time. People come in and settle. You have new neighbors, you don't know them, but you are living in a community with them, you are building relationships with them, and anything, all that could develop into something dangerous very quickly.
Right.
And so that's the reason why we are undertaking this research with the support of the European Union under a grant agreement that we have with them, you know, to look at violent extremism and to, you know, structure an education campaign around the issues to create awareness amongst Ghanaians about how close and how real this thing is to us right now.
Right.
And to help people develop a certain mindset that is quickly able to identify strange and odd things in their community that could be an indicator, and to help people also know the mechanism for doing something about the things that happen in their community, because this is really community-based. You know, these kind of issues are things that are happening in the community. So we undertook this, which is more of a baseline study, just to have an idea of the lay of the land along all the border regions, the 10 border regions across the country, and in 71 districts in those regions, just to be able to find out people's understanding, you know.
And we'll be getting to that shortly, the level of awareness of people, because you go to certain countries that have had experiences, and of course people are very aware when they see certain things, they react in certain ways. Here, we don't seem to have that experience, and so we'll get to what the research shows thus far. But something I found interesting, it's only recently that we were talking about a national security strategy.
Yes.
And it makes mention of terrorism, violent extremism. And then we have your report, which now is ready, presented only yesterday. And then we see it targeting, you know, violent extremism, among others, in the sub-region. So this is more of a reality than many of us would realize. But if it's happening all around you, you must realize that it could happen within you. So that's why it's so important to talk about this. But let's get back to the bit about awareness. Per the research, how aware are our people, especially along the border towns, when it comes to the threat of terrorism, violent extremism? What did the
Well,
research
the awareness is pretty high, particularly in the areas that have close proximity to the countries where, in more recent times, such things have happened. So, for instance, in the northern districts that are along the northern border, and the districts along the northern border, there's greater awareness compared to maybe the border on the east or the west. Remember that we also have conflicts locally. There are areas of conflict that, you know, are very real to the people who are in those situations. I mean, there's electoral violence and vigilantism that is a problem that we have to address, we have to deal with, or we are dealing with in this country. There's chieftaincy disputes. There's land guardism and land disputes. There's recently secessionism and a whole lot of other things. So, and the reason why it's important to have a high consciousness of these things is that sometimes they are linked, you know, because the other way that people infiltrate and create problems in countries is by taking advantage of local conflict. You know, so if there's some kind of religious tension over some issue, then an outside group sees that as an opportunity to come and deepen the wedge. Or if there's a land dispute or chieftaincy, they come in, they deepen the wedge, they resource one side against the other, they impose an ideology, they convince people, and then it foments the problem and makes it bigger, and then it explodes in your face. So there's awareness, particularly along the areas where you have conflict already. So either the local conflict or particularly the areas like the
because those
border,
people have been exposed to some conflict
already. Some form of exposure. Very few people have direct exposure, if you know what I mean. But in terms of consciousness of that sort of activity, particularly across the country and where there are local disputes, yes, there's great awareness.
I also noticed that, per the research, there was a bit of a conflict, even in terms of the understanding of violent extremism and all of that.
A lot of people,
which in itself is a problem in some way.
Yes, it's a problem. A lot of people didn't understand the concept because we looked at violent extremism as a justified use of violence to be able to promote either an ideological objective or, you know, any kind of objective like that, a religious objective and all that. But the use of the intentional use of violence to be able to justify and try and, you know, achieve that objective. That's what we are calling violent extremism. And as a concept, you know, it's not something that people ready, thankfully, and it's only because we don't have the experience. So for that, we are grateful in a way, because what that means is that it's not because we don't have it. It just, you know, speaks to the fact that we don't have it. But we need the consciousness. People need to be aware because it's so close to us now that we cannot afford not to have the consciousness at the very minimum. You know, so yes, there's a huge gap in terms of the people's understanding of what violent extremism is.
Okay, so another angle that I found interesting to all of this is that while there is no real justification, so to speak, for extremist activity, I mean, across the world there are laws, international and local as well, but you would find that, again, in different countries, there have been instances where people have reacted in certain ways for certain reasons that some may even call justifiable, like fighting corruption, like underdevelopment-related issues. And that also feeds into your report, because apart from gaining power, which I want to seclude for now, some of the responses also showed people leaning towards this in terms of wanting to fight the monster of corruption, wanting to do away with underdevelopment and all of that.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, unemployment is a huge risk when it comes to violent extremism, because the unemployed young people who may not have a sense of hope, you know, for the future, who do not see a light at the end of the tunnel, and if there are so many of them and they think that there's no opportunity for them whatsoever, this becomes a real threat. Because when, like I said before, those who foment these problems have a method. They have a very well-tested method that they've used in other places, whereby they come, infiltrate communities, identify the vulnerable, and the vulnerable, unemployed young people form a good chunk of the vulnerable when it comes to these sorts of things. So yes, the unemployed are a big target for those undertaking these activities. And because of their situation where they feel that there's no hope for them, when somebody comes and is talking about a future that can be so amazing, you know, and is giving money, because they give money, they provide services and all of that. You know, they come into your community and they say, listen, your government has not even given you water. You know, we will bring water to you. We will do this for you and do that for you. And then, you know, slowly, you know, so the unemployed, if you have a great number of unemployed people or young people, then of course your risk is higher. But one of the things I spoke about yesterday at the launch is that this is really a battle for the minds of people, because if you can sit there for somebody to convince you to do wrong, then somebody can convince you to do right. You understand? I mean, that's the way I see it. And the reason why the role of NCC is very important in this matter is because when it comes to the battle for the minds, that is where we specialize, because we need to, apart from educate people, create awareness, also create the mindset among citizens that makes it more difficult for them to be swayed to undertake these kinds of activities. So the education, you know, will cover all of these things. It's important for awareness creation, because once you create awareness, you lower your risk, because people have a greater consciousness. For instance, if market people have a greater consciousness that when people come to the market and ask you to hold a bag, somebody says, oh, here, please hold my rubber bag for me. I'm just going to go to the washroom and come. And you don't know what is in the bag, you should not take it. You know, but we are such a hospitable and friendly people that if a stranger comes and says, oh, I'm going to the washroom, please hold this bag for me, you say, okay, just put it down and go and come, you know, because we haven't experienced any form of negative backlash from things like that. But these elements will take advantage of it. So for the awareness creation will address those sorts of issues. Now, the mindset change is the one that will show people that, at least let people understand that this is not real, that the promises that these terrorists and others come and make to you are not real. You can show them what happens in other countries. They promise people that they are going to build a paradise here on earth or something like that. And then they start off by making life very comfortable for you. The next thing you know, you have been recruited, you are trained to kill, you are made to think that killing is nothing, taking human life is completely justified. And your mind is, you know, set in such a way that you don't even mind. And then you get to a point where you are killing your neighbors. You know, you are calling
feeds into the indoctrination, which is what they
absolutely,
always do.
Absolutely. So there's a need for serious public education to help, change people's mindsets, particularly the vulnerable groups.
Right. Now, talking about this public education, I mean, I was just looking even at the act setting up the NCC all the way from 1993 post the 1992 Constitution and all of that. And of course, civic education is more or less what you're supposed to be doing, among a few other things. So this is novel, and this is beautiful that you've undertaken this task. But all of these elements that you mentioned, from corruption to underdevelopment, unemployment, the desire to acquire political power, secessionism, and all of that, all of these things that you mentioned, did this report also break it down to find out, for example, is unemployment more of a problem than, say, corruption? Is corruption more of a problem than, say, landguardism and all of that? I mean, how do they weigh? Because that will also allow even leadership to know which areas to address.
Well, this is a baseline study. This is just to help us understand. It's not. This report does not go too deep. Because first of all, we sample 71 districts, and the sample size is 1,100, fairly small. So it doesn't go too deep into all of that. And I think that once you identify the problem, if you identify these range of problems, you must deploy all kinds of interventions to address those problems. Now, you understand, globally and locally, we know what is the bigger threat. I mean, if your neighbor, even we have a saying that if your neighbor's beard is on fire, you better find a bucket of water. So
indeed,
there's a lot of information around global networks that feed these movements.
I mean, we've had a few cases right here in Ghana. Some students who, if you remember, back then.
A couple.
We've had a few of them.
In fact, yesterday it came up and somebody said, well, we say, the unemployed are a vulnerable group and a target for these groups. But it doesn't mean that everybody who is unemployed or only unemployed people fall into this trap.
Some of these were educated people.
Yes, exactly. So that is why the mindset, education around the mindset is also important, because there are ideological issues, there are religious beliefs and all of that also push people in a particular direction. So the unemployment is there, and other things that people are trying to push their development agenda. People are trying to eliminate corruption. All of that. Those are all big issues. But for me, the biggest thing is the mindset. The biggest thing is the mindset, because with the mindset issue, it becomes even difficult to say that, okay, this is a vulnerable group. Anybody, if you look at what has happened, the people who, for instance, are living comfortably and then because of indoctrination, abandon their life, abandon their families, move all the way deep into the Middle East, when the troubles were there, and leave the UK, for instance, live a normal life, a nice family, a good middle-class life, and they just go and join. But that's a mindset issue right there. So people are being radicalized, people are joining groups that are discussing some ideas and all of that. So that actually, for me, is the biggest issue, because it's an intangible. You understand? Unemployment is something you can see. You know how many unemployed people you have. You know that if you put in some, if employment goes up, for instance, you reduce the chances of such,
If you solve certain social problems,
you could solve them
the tide of people getting susceptible to these.
But when you have a mindset challenge, when it is an idea, it's a battle of ideas, then you have a real challenge on your hands, because in that case, everybody is vulnerable.
And speaking of that vulnerability, I mean, even in the developed world, even in developed countries, so to speak, the US, the UKs, and the West, there is some level of violent extremism. I mean, even if you look at the US, oftentimes they are talking of groups from outside and all of that. Yes. But within the United States itself, the violent extremism that happens there,
terrorism in the United States, it's actually sometimes
it is bigger than even what comes externally. So it can be a major problem. But my point is, in a place like the United States, there's a lot more awareness, and they know what the problem is. They had 9/11 and all of that. Here in Ghana, yes, it was a baseline study, but while other countries may be so prepared because of their experience, what do you feel is the level of preparedness of Ghana when it comes to addressing this issue? And if anything were to happen, God forbid, our level of preparedness in terms of dealing with it?
Well, I mean, in terms of preparation, there's a whole lot more that needs to be done. And the report clearly shows the awareness is there, but it's not too high. Even understanding what violent extremism is trying to even explain the concept.
If you don't even know what it is,
exactly.
How do you even appreciate
but you see, this is the thing. So I think that we are going about it the right way, because we have identified a problem. It's not here yet. We are trying to undertake all these activities.
Which is a very good thing.
Yes. In the US, when 9/11 happened, it was a shock to the system. So many people were not aware of any world beyond their immediate communities. That was an eye-opener. Hopefully, if we are able to create a certain level of awareness, if we're able to do a lot of work, then we won't have that big event that now, because of the negative event, now creates awareness, you understand? And that's what we are trying to address. We're trying to reach a point where we have greater awareness so that we can reduce the risk of these things happening here. And the risks are real, Ben. I mean, look at our neighbors. Things are falling apart all over the place. Look at what is happening in Nigeria. You know, and Nigeria being such a giant with such a heavy population, if we have a refugee crisis from it, we will be overwhelmed.
Right.
You know, and if it happens...
I mean, we saw what happened even with Liberia.
Yes, and Liberia is a much smaller country. And if it happens on our blind side while we were busy doing something else and not aware, then we will be really, truly overwhelmed, you know.
So having laid bare all these issues, it is a good thing that we think it's not here yet. At least we don't know that it is here yet. But I say we think it is not here yet because sometimes that is how it happens. You're not even aware of the situation. There could be cells, hotbeds that you're not aware of. Totally. So it's good that we've started now that we don't have an all-out, extremist threat in the country. But moving forward, your chairperson, Josephine Nkrumah, has been pushing for government to respond to the report that you've come out with, to respond with urgency and accelerate the various interventions that would, prevent, forestall any such happenings. What do you have to say on that? What are the expectations of the NCC when it comes to government? What should we be doing in the next?
Well, I mean, we worked in collaboration with some of the structures, the national security structures and all of that in putting the report together. And so there's a collaboration already in place. We had meetings with national security about this. We've presented our report. They are very happy about it because what it does is that it gives them even more information, even more detail to be able to deal with. We expect that, at least for us as NCC, in order to be able to do our work, that we receive the support and the resources necessary to undertake this campaign to bring the awareness and to address the behavior change mindset issues that need to be in place for us to be able to reduce our risk. So, for instance, in the border areas, some places are very remote. We have logistical challenges.
Right.
Of course, this is this study.
I mean, you may not even have access to electricity, talk of internet, so there could be those challenges.
There could be those challenges, or even the basic motorbike, to be able to move into communities, be able to go there regularly, understand what's going on, be able to collect data, get regular feedback, and all of that. All that needs, we need to be collecting data more regularly. As we go on, we need to, at several points, as we go on with the education, we need to collect data to understand how the work is going down, how people are understanding the interventions that we are putting in place. And of course, the general problems, the general developmental problems that we have, particularly unemployment,
right.
you know, it's a big issue, but that's not, you know, that's totally out of our hands.
To be honest with you,
yeah.
all the matters that you mentioned, I look at that as the biggest threat.
It is
for me. I don't know what.
It is a major threat. It's a major threat. It's a major threat. So, government, that's not our remit. But having identified that as a threat, it is our hope that when government is developing policies around unemployment and to create job creation mechanisms for young people, they should understand that it's not just about job creation, but job creation and creating unemployment as a way of averting a security disaster for our country, you understand?
Right.
And so that sort of puts more emphasis on the need and just shows how the need is greater in order to avoid.
I just want to find out, because something just hit me. You see the national security strategy I was talking about, which was unveiled only recently, launched.
Yeah.
Was government privy? Of course, you are in the setup. Was government privy to your report before this was framed? I'm just thinking, if not, some of the things you mentioned may not even have been taken stock of in framing this.
If you look at that report, you will see that in terms of intervention, NCC is mentioned in the report, in the government's own report, as one of the strategies, as public education is a big part of government's own plan. For dealing with this issue.
But was there awareness of this specific report before the strategy was put together, as the strategy was put together?
I think we went to National Security a few days before they launched their report to submit. This, by the way, has not been out for too long.
Right.
Itself.
It's just Tuesdays.
Yes, exactly. So, I mean, there was awareness, but not that much, I suppose. Not that much, I suppose, yes.
So, just to wrap, now that you've started this yeoman's job, this beautiful thing that you've come up with as the NCC, and we would love to see more of that, what is your next plan of action? Government has its role to play, but as an institution, there is the hope, at least from people like me, that it would not end here. Oh, we've provided a report.
No.
This is the report. Government, if you don't act on the report, then... So what is your next plan of action to even keep pushing institutions like national security, like other bodies, to follow through on some of the things?
We ourselves need to follow through because, like I said, it's a baseline study. We are going to build a whole range of public education interventions based on the information that we have collected.
Right.
So this information, even though it's useful for the general public, is useful for security institutions, is useful for government, is useful for us as an institution as well, because we don't, all the public education we do is based on something concrete, on information that we've gathered, because you have to deploy interventions that actually respond to the problem.
Right.
So if you do not know the problem, your interventions might look good as interventions, but they may not be responding to a particular problem.
They don't really solve the problem.
Exactly. So once you know, it's important when you are undertaking public education campaigns to do baseline studies, to understand your problem, you know, to get better clarity about your problem, where your problem is, the nature of it, the different dimensions of it. And that helps you to now plan your education campaign and interventions to be able to respond to those problems as identified through your data. Right. So this is just a step one for us in this. Like I said, we are working in collaboration with the European Union. We have a grant that...
Is the grant still going to
follow
through?
Yes.
Or is it just for this phase?
No, it's not just for the research. It's for, there's a whole, I think, a year-long public education campaign. Of course, we could do with a whole lot more if we will get access to the resources. But yes, that's what we are doing. So we have our work cut out for us. We've collected our information. We are clear in our minds what we should be doing and how we should be doing it. And hopefully, it is our hope that the report will also, you know, inform government's own interventions, which are more multifaceted. You know, their interventions, their economic interventions, their security forces. Are they properly resourced? Do they have the equipment? Do they have the technical know-how? Do they
Especially
have the capacity?
around those border areas?
Yes, can we respond? Immigration, are they properly resourced? How are they doing along the borders? How are they monitoring, you know, the back and forth of people going back and forth, because you know how our borders are. A lot of, I mean, as you yourself know, the colonial history, our borders sometimes run
pretty porous.
Beyond that, they run through towns. It's not so much the porousness of it. If there's a line to your town, and it's one town, and you know, your one town, there's an artificial line through it. In your mind, there's not a porous border. You are just in your town. You understand? And there's a lot of that all around the borders because the lines were drawn arbitrarily. You see what I mean? So there's that. So it becomes a little more complex in managing those borders because you cannot manage the borders in such a way that you as if almost you're not aware that you're in the middle of a town, that your line, your artificial line, runs through somebody's town, and you can't act as if you can't enforce that line in somebody's town in the same way as you would enforce it along a clear divide. You see what I mean? So there are issues around immigration, there are issues around the security forces and how they are equipped, you know, whether they have the technology, whether they have the capacity, whether they have the personnel who have adequate training to be able to respond.
So some things are clear. This is our reality. It's happening in our sub-region all around us. And violent extremism is not something we are immune to. It is good we are waking up to it. And a lot more work remains to be done to ensure that we don't fall victim like other countries have done. It's been refreshing engaging you, Kathleen Addy. Thank you. And it is my hope and prayer that the NCC will live up to the challenge and continue on the educational front.
As usual, we will always do our very best with what we have.
That is Kathleen Addy. She's a deputy chairperson at the NCCE. Once more, thank you for coming.
Thank you. Have a great day.
So COVID-19, well, it's here with us. When we return after the break, we're going to be talking about that research piece that shows a surge in anxiety in obesity cases in children. Find out when we return. Thank you for staying with us as we talk about a crucial aspect of COVID-19, the psychosocial or socioeconomic aspect of it. Now, a research by the West Africa College of Physicians has shown that anxiety and obesity cases have increased due to COVID-19. The team says the pandemic has caused stress, depression, and even suicide among children and their families. Anxiety from isolation, inability to escape family discords, and pressure from both the old and the new. Economic stress has also compounded all of these features. There have been increased reports of abuse in various forms. Those families that had COVID-19 deaths are having to deal with grief, signs and symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder post the event. How exactly do we deal with these? What is the statistic basically on all of these, especially in our country, Ghana, and how can we emerge from them? Well, our guest this morning, Dr. Pabi Abekwe, he's a consultant pediatrician. Dr. Abekwe, thank you for joining the conversation.
Thank you for welcoming me.
Great. And it's interesting that this new, study, puts together all of this. So I would ask you to give us a bit of a backdrop. We know anxiety, obesity, and all of that, but give us a bit of a backdrop. What does this really reveal in terms of COVID and where it has left us currently?
Okay, thank you very much. So we all know how COVID came in, and it just started somewhere in 2019 December. We heard that there's a new disease that was spreading very fast, and by March the following year, it had become a pandemic, which means every part of the world was suffering the consequences of the pandemic. Now, what happened was, I think on the 12th of March, Ghana had its first case. Then by the end of March, there was a lockdown. And all that news sort of spread a lot of anxiety and stress, economic lockdown. People were not going to work. They were always at home. People were scared. They didn't know what was going to happen. I mean, what next? So all this has gone on, and we are realizing that this has led to a lot of impact. Economically, we know what it has done to various economies in the world. We know a lot of people have lost their lives, and we know a lot of people have also lost their livelihood. The daily job that they do to earn a living, they've lost it. And all these things have had a toll on the family. and more especially the children. What we have realized recently is that more and more children are coming in with a lot of anxiety-related problems, developmental problems that hitherto we were not seeing it that much. And cursory, look around our consulting rooms and what have you, made us aware that, no, look, it looks like something else is happening. Apart from the pandemic itself, there is something.
There are things that are resulting from
the pandemic that if you don't pay attention to and start dealing with it, in the near future, it is also going to become another problem altogether. For example, obesity. We know obesity is common or is now increasing among children in our part of the world. Now, the lockdown, children were at home, they were not in school. For 9 months, they were not going to school. They were sitting at home. And you can imagine what will happen. They will eat anything they laid their hands on. They were not playing. There was no activity. So we realized that
activity also means a lot more weight that
a lot more weight gain. They are always fixed on the screen. They are playing with a tablet, watching television, being exposed to certain things that they are not supposed to be exposed to. What we also realized was that child abuse cases also went up, including physical abuse, sexual abuse during the period of the lockdown. And all these things have a long-term impact on the life of the children who are the future of the country or the world.
So it's a broad dynamic that we have to deal with here. And I'll have us take them apart one by one. I mean, obesity, we can talk about it because we've seen it, especially in the West, where child obesity has become a big thing. It's also becoming a big deal in our part of the world now. And on the back of COVID-19, the numbers have just gone up. But let's start with anxiety. I remember speaking to the students of the youngsters school right here in Kukumlimli not too long ago, and I spoke to one girl. One of the things she mentioned was that because of COVID-19, during the lockdown, they were not allowed to go out. Even playing among siblings was restricted in a way. And you could tell from her reaction, both from home and at school, that it had cost her a lot, that it had caused certain things. Children naturally want to do certain things, play in certain ways, do certain things, engage in certain activities. Anxiety, what is the revelation from this study, especially with the children that participated in it?
Yeah, so it wasn't actually a study per se, but then because of what we realized, sometimes when you are there, you see cases coming to you more than you should ask yourself questions. Yeah, following a trend, you should ask yourself certain questions. And that is what most physicians who especially deal with children and family issues have come to realize that, look, more and more cases of anxiety, more and more cases of developmental problems are coming up. And what is it about? So talking among ourselves and discussing the cases that we are seeing across the country, realize that, look, this is also another pandemic that is coming up that we need to deal with. You will be in the consulting room, a child will come in, will come and tell you that, Mommy is not sending me to school. Mommy doesn't want to send me to school because they don't understand whatever is happening. Because they like going to school, they like relating with people. We are social beings. And the same way children also want to interact. That is the best way they learn. You learn by interacting, by being curious, asking questions, doing this and that. So if they don't play, if they are not going to school, they are not learning, they are not doing it, then it brings a lot of stress on them, brings a lot of anxiety on them. And it is something that we are saying the family need to be aware of, that children are having these challenges, and therefore we need to look out for it and make sure that we deal with it across the country before it leads to more problems.
So we're having more and more children coming through with depression, for example. And I'm asking this because we know it's one of the global causes of suicide, which is also something that is becoming pretty prominent. What is the angle into that? What can you share in that respect?
Yeah, so just like you said, sometimes people think that children, why should they become anxious? Why should they be depressed? But the children also become depressed, and that leads to a lot of cases. It may affect their academic performance, and a lot of the children, they will tell you that their performance have gone down. Some of them, their development, their language.
The pupils I spoke with, they admitted that their performance, especially post-COVID, has gone down. Even their teachers confirmed it.
Absolutely, because if you are sitting at home 9 months, you are not being engaged, you are not being stimulated to learn, then you don't acquire new skills. And the old skills that you've acquired, you are likely to lose it as well. And so children have lost so much on their educational aspect of their lives. They've lost so much on social interaction, learning to relate to one another. and all that. And all those things being, prevented from playing, being prevented from engaging in maybe parties and what have you. So all these things brings a lot of stress on them. That leads to depression and then suicide tendencies also among children as well, and even among especially the adolescents.
Now, people have lost their businesses, their livelihoods, and all of that. So, economic aspects of COVID-19. Some people have lost family members to COVID-19. And the rhetoric is that even from the medical setting, you see more and more people, not just children, coming through with post-traumatic stress disorder. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so we know that usually, during the normal life, when pandemic wasn't there, if a family or a father or a mother loses their job, it brings a lot of strain on the family. And that leads to a lot of problems on the family. Now with the COVID pandemic, a lot of people lost their jobs. They were now sitting at home. They didn't know what to do. The economy was in shutdown. And a lot of them have still not gained or regained their employment. So they are still struggling to even take care of the family, to provide the daily need that they need. And all these things we are aware. And even the families that suffered loss. Some people lost their parents, some people lost maybe siblings and what have you. And they are grieving within them. Some didn't even have the opportunity of even seeing them off the way that we know. And all these things has long-term implications on the life of the whole family, both parents and children.
And the bit about obesity, let's hit it now. We see already that if there's a lockdown, in countries that have had 1, 2, 3 lockdowns, you see how sometimes I've seen videos of people who are just tearing their hair out, not physically, but like not in reality, but they can't take it anymore.
Sure.
They want to go out. In the UK, we saw it when another lockdown was threatened and all of that. What has been the impact on obesity, or I should say, by COVID-19? Because we're taking stock of the fact that obesity itself is a comorbidity.
Yeah.
And now it appears COVID-19 itself is also creating the comorbidity.
Sure. So that has become almost like a double-edged sword. Where we know obesity was actually a problem among our children, especially in the urban areas where children don't walk to school. Right from their gate, they sit in the car, they are moved to the school. In the afternoon, they come and pick them up straight from the school to their house. No walking, no activity, nothing. Now COVID has come in, they are home. They are not even going anywhere at all. So they are home eating everything.
So now they are not even walking to the car.
They are not even walking even to the car. They are not walking to the car. They are walking to the classrooms and all that. So we realize that more and more children are also becoming obese. And we know the implication of obesity for the future. If now they are not having any challenges in future, they may develop diabetes, they may develop hypertension and other stress disorders. So all these things are things that we have realized, and the college wants the public to be aware. So we organized the public forum, which is coming on today, this afternoon, 4 p.m.
Right.
And we want as many people to tune in and listen to the experts discuss the issue. We have parents who will come around. We have developmental experts who will be on the decks or on the table to talk about the real issues that is happening in the population.
I'll let you also delve deeper into that. I mean, how people can connect and all of that. But let's finally, before we get into that, take a look at, the screen addiction bits that you spoke of. Of course, there's been also a lot of emotional dislocation.
Yeah.
Dysfunction and dislocation, because certain things that the people would do, like you're saying, we are gregarious social beings, they are no longer able to do, and so they resort to different screens, whether it's the TV, the computer, the phone. What has been the impact? What have you seen in medical circles?
Yeah, so what we know for sure is that if you expose children to the screen for longer periods, it affects their speech development.
Their speech
development.
Wow.
Or there's always speech delay. So because it's not interactive, it's just one way. It's not like you and I engaging each other.
Oh, right.
I talk to you, you talk to me, I expect you, I'm watching you, you are watching my mannerism and a few other things. Like we say, communication is not only about the words. It's about non-verbal communication. It's also key. It's also very, very important. So exposing children to the screen for longer periods causes delay in their speech. And this we have realized is on the rise. I spoke to one of the consultants in Companochi, a pediatric neurologist, and he kept saying that he's seeing these children more frequently than than he used to. The same way I'm also seeing them in my consulting room more frequently than I used to.
It cuts across.
It cuts across the whole country. And we believe that it's because they are being exposed to the screen, they are not being allowed to interact. You know, when children go to school, around 2-3 years, when they start going to school, they pick up a lot of vocabulary. Now they are sitting at home, so no vocabulary to pick up.
And it's really sad because some parents too, because the children are at home and maybe
they want to have time for themselves, they just hand them over the screen.
They give you the tablet, the phone.
It happens every now and then. I mean, children will come to you in the hospital consulting room and they are holding their mother's phones, they are holding tablets, they are not interacting with you, they are just playing. You take it away from them and they will throw tantrums and they are addicted to the screen. It's what we call screen addiction. Some adults are even addicted to the screen now because during the lockdown and they were home, they were always fixed to the screen on Facebook, WhatsApp, and these things are addictive. So the more you engage in it, the more you continue to engage in it, you become more addicted to it. And it's having an impact in the way people relate to each other. Even at home, siblings will be there and everybody will be in his room or sitting at the hall on their phones. You go out with friends, everybody is on his phone. No longer interacting.
All of us, doesn't it?
Yeah, it happens to all of us.
You go out and you're interacting more with your phone than
the person that you are out with.
So these are realities we have to deal with, and it's really good that you've taken the time as medical professionals, pediatricians, among others, to lay them bare. But today's program that you're having, you've already started talking about it.
Sure.
Go back to it, let's rehash it. How can people participate? What do they have to do? Where is it happening? On what platforms and all that? Tell us a bit more.
So normally the West African College of Physicians hold an annual public forum.
Right.
And it's usually open to the whole public. Unfortunately, because of the pandemic and its ramifications, we are not able to hold it physically. So this year we are doing it on Zoom. And parents, stakeholders, everybody, the media houses, they are all invited to join us on Zoom this afternoon at 4 p.m. And we have our experts who will give a talk on the psychosocial impacts on children. We have other panelists who also give their opinion about the various aspects of the psychological or social impact of COVID-19. And then we open the forum for everybody to also engage, to contribute or to ask questions so that the experts who will be on the panel will explain it to everybody the way forward, how families will have to now sort of relearn or redo certain things, readjust their lifestyle. I mean, previously we used to have a lot of family games. I mean, at home, you play a lot of games. These days, you hardly see it.
The Owaris, Ludus.
The Owaris, the Ludus.
The phones and stuff have come to take over.
The phones, and so we need to go back to some of those things so that at least there will be a family time where families can now sit together and have fun.
So is that to say that someone who feels, I'm getting suicidal on the back of depression or something, or someone who is suffering from PTSD, maybe has lost a relative to COVID and all of that, these people can come online, follow the program, and even pose questions?
Yes, they can come online, pose questions during the program and even after the program, because the program may not last forever. Even after the program, they can always get in touch with their physicians, psychologists. We encourage the schools also to try at least engage the service of psychologists, clinical psychologists, at least maybe once a month or once every other time to come in, have a session with the students, help them to adjust to the new things. I mean, you used to go to school, you don't wear masks, we just mingle with each other, we hug each other. Now all those things have been taken away from us from the pandemic. So we need to learn how we'll be able to engage the children and even as families and all that, so that our life would sort of seem to come back to normal.
Okay, and I'm just asking this from the standpoint of someone who might want to join, and that will be the final bit. So the Zoom link, for example, how is it going to be accessible?
Okay, I don't know if I can mention the link number.
Well, then, I don't know.
Or maybe I'll give it to you. You can put it on the screen.
Okay.
For
I don't know whether it's short enough, whether it wouldn't be a mouthful.
No, it's a mouthful, so probably we have to put it on the screen.
Right. So we're going to put it on the screen shortly, and then if anyone wants to.
So if anybody wants to join at 4 p.m., join us live on Zoom, and we will be there. I will be there moderating the section. So feel free and join us. Anybody is invited. Everybody is invited. Come in, come and listen to the experts. Come ask your questions. your doubts. If you have any contributions, come in. We have a parent who herself had COVID, and the child also had COVID. Also coming to share her experience about how they managed to cope with the COVID. Because you can imagine a parent who have COVID, your child also had a COVID. Probably you are in different hospitals or different beds or what have you, or even if you are in the same house, you can't mix with the other family. The COVID brought so much damage to the family dynamics. And we know society is held by the family. So if family dynamics are broken, then society stands to lose.
And I know that's why you're coming through with this, to share those social stories, so people can also know that they are not alone. You're not alone in this. All of us have faced it in different ways. You know, I remember when the first lockdown, or the lockdown was, initiated and all of that. I still had to go to work as a broadcaster, but sometimes you would go around and the quietness of it all, no one around and all of that, straight from your room to work and work back inside and all of that. It had a bit of an impact. Yes. So this is really important, and we are grateful that you've put this together. So Doc, maybe just to wrap, as we get that link, Zoom a link on our screens as well, your final words.
So my final words are that we have realized that COVID-19 did not only cause loss of life and sickness among family and children, but beyond that, there are some ramifications that has resulted from the pandemic. And we want people to be aware that these things do exist. It may be happening, people don't understand, but now we want them to know that it's coming as a result of the pandemic, and there are ways to go about it to make sure that it minimizes the impact on the family. So they should join us this afternoon, 4 p.m. on Zoom, and we will discuss the issue thoroughly.
Dr. Abekwe, thank you so much for your time, consultant, pediatrician, and we're grateful that you've put this
Yes, maybe together. Before I go, I would like to say that we are very grateful to JoyNews for having us here to at least make the public aware of this program, and other media outlets who are also assisting us to carry the message across, who will also be joining us online today, and our sponsor, Zutron Pharma, who are also supporting us to make sure that this message goes down to the...
And we thank you too for doing this. And we collaborate always when it has such a beautiful impact. So we're also grateful to do this together.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much, Ed.
You're welcome.
So from the health setup and all of these that have emerged on the back of COVID-19, will be coming your way with another very pertinent conversation when it comes to electrical wiring, the Energy Commission, and what it's been doing in that respect. That is right after this break. Do stay. Thank you for staying. Now, the Energy Commission and the Ghana Standards Authority are implementing safety regulations, and we'll be telling you a bit more about that. We'd have officials from these institutions tell us more on the show. That is right now. That is the next conversation we're getting into. We have joining us for the conversation Francis Akbalu, who actually is with the Ghana Standards Authority. A very good morning to you, Francis.
Good morning.
And we also have Nanama Akoto Osei Apia, who is with the Energy Commission. She'll be joining us as we have this all-important conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining the conversation.
Okay.
Great. I'm sure from time to time people hear of you, your entity, and they ask, Energy Commission, what do you do as an Energy Commission?
Okay, so the Energy Commission, by Act 541 is to advise the Minister of Energy on energy policies, and also to through the functions of the Energy Commission, we make sure that we ensure the efficient use of energy resources in the country. That's renewable energy and also energy efficiency.
Okay, and now there is this drive which involves a number of institutions, including, like I mentioned, the Ghana Standards Authority, the Energy Commission, among others. when it comes to electrical wiring. We've noticed a lot of those create so many problems, sometimes even resulting in fires and all that. But this electrical wiring program that you've initiated, what is it all about? Why this program? Okay, so this program was introduced in 2012, and the electrical wiring regulation, that's LI 2008, took force in 2012 due to the fire outbreaks that happens in the country. This was because of the uncertified electricians in the country. Their works are not regulated, and the Energy Commission thought it wise to come up with this regulation to ensure that these electricians use standard materials for their jobs so that it can reduce the increasing fires in the country. Okay, now that you mentioned standards, I cannot help but move on to Francis Akpalu. What is the role of the Ghana Standards Authority in all of this, in terms of electrical wiring, basically whatever we use in wiring our homes and offices?
Okay, so you rightly heard my lady made reference to the wiring regulation. The wiring regulation is actually based on the Ghana Standards Wiring Code. Okay. Okay, so this applies to distribution of electrical energy to household facilities, factories, kiosks, playgrounds, construction sites, with the primary aim of making sure persons are safe, buildings are safe, even with accidental fall. Nobody is electrocuted because of the availability of electricity supply to the facility. And she mentioned about fires. Fires occur when we have bad installations, or the materials that are used in the installations are substandard. So the Ghana Standards Authority collaborates with the Energy Commission to ensure that these electrical materials that are used by the certified electrical practitioners are within the scope or falls within the quality limits of the standards that we have developed.
Okay, and you mentioned substandard material. What is substandard electrical material? Okay. Just break it down for us. Okay.
So to define what a substandard material is, I want to look at what a standard is. A standard basically is a quality requirement. I want to be very practical. For example, your suit that you are wearing, there's a reason why the left arm is not longer than the right arm. The tailor was able to take measurement, record them, and follow every recording he has made to come out with this suit. So we say the suit comes out from the specifications recorded by the tailor.
Right.
So the outcome is that the product has fit into the specification. Now, any product that is out of specification, any product that do not meet the quality of its own standard or its own specification, or both standards and specification, can be said to be a substandard material. And that poses danger to persons who use them. Yeah.
Let me come back to you, Nanama. I know that as you've put together this electrical wiring program, there are different people and the roles they are going to be playing, especially those who are going to get the certification, facility owners, and all of that. Tell us about what role all of these are supposed to play to ensure that we can avoid the fires, to ensure that our homes, our other facilities are safe.
Okay, so with the facility owner is to engage a certified electrical wiring professional to wire his facility or her facility, whether residential, commercial, or industrial. This is because it's now a law, and any facility owner, without you using a certified electrical wiring professional, the utility distribution wouldn't give you service connection. So if all facility owners, whether residential, commercial, should always engage a certified electrical wiring professional in the wiring of their installations.
And this is where it gets interesting. The certification How are people going to get it? The Energy Commission, what is your role? And how do even people who are putting up buildings or facilities know that where to go to get these certified professionals to ensure that they are complying with the law?
Okay, so it's very simple. To get this certified electrician, you have to go on the Energy Commission's website. We have the register of all certified electricians. Currently, we have almost 11,000 certified electricians across nationwide. So when you go on our website, that's www.energycom.gov.gh, you'll find all certified electrical wiring professionals. Interestingly, too, we have an app called the Certified Electrician app, where you can download on whether Android or Apple Play Store, and then you get the app on your phone. Wherever the electrician...
So it's made even easier. You can just use an app on your phone. And
you can use an app on your phone. So you can just sit in the comfort of your home and just type in the location, and then you get an electrician within that domain.
Okay, so let's face the reality here. There are about 11,000 of them, but we usually know that in most things there's a concentration in the urban areas. How easy is it going to be for people in other parts of the country when they need this service to get a certified electrician? Is it going to be pretty easy?
Yes, it's very easy because in Accra, for instance, I mean, in Greater Accra, we have, let's say, 4,000. And the rest are in all the regions. That's across the 16 regions. So in the rural areas, we have a lot of certified electricians. Yes.
Right. So they have to go through this process, get a certified professional as facility owners and all of that. But who is going to foot the bill? The inspector who comes through and all of that. Who is going to foot the bill?
Okay, so when an inspector comes in, it means that the certified electrical wiring professional is supposed to pay the inspector for his job. The certified electrical wiring professional's job is to do the wiring of the job. Right. And the inspector is to inspect to confirm that the job is accurate before service connection is given to that facility. So when the inspector comes in, the CWP, that's the certified professional, then pays the inspector for the job done.
Okay, so then when it comes to the wiring, does that mean the Ghana Standards Authority would come in too? Because I'm thinking even when you invite the certified professional, there will be some specifications about what material you should use.
Yeah, so
what does that entail?
I mentioned that the wiring regulation is actually based on the wiring code.
Right.
And the wiring code is a GS standard, a GS 1009, that specifies how electrical materials, the type of material, their quality levels will have to be employed during installation. Okay. And also specify which facilities that you need to install these electrical accessories. And I must add that we have standards for all the products that the certified electrical practitioners must use. And when you go to GSA's website, we have started a program with electrical cables. Right. Without electrical cable installation, your lighting cannot come on, your circuit cannot work. So we are giving priority to the cables for now. Okay. You have cables that have been tested and have been approved by the GSA at our site. Right. And we say that all practitioners should endeavor to use only this product. If you don't see the name on our site, we cannot guarantee the quality of it.
Here is a problem that we faced because there's a proliferation of substandard, cabling and all of that, and they are intermerged or merged with all of the other, high quality ones. Yeah. In fact, a lot of the time, sometimes you would even see some of them mimicking the originals, and people are buying these fake ones as well.
Exactly.
What are you doing about that?
So that's we can talk about the characteristics of substandard electrical products. So I'll first talk about pricing. No substandard or counterfeit or fake electrical product of the same size will be sold at the same price. So when a buyer goes to the market, one of the things you should look at is that you have a 1.5 mm square cable. You have to compare prices. Currently in the market, 1.5 mm cable is about 150 or 160 Ghana cedis. So if you find another type of cable the same size going for a 50 Ghana cedis, that should send you a signal.
Right.
2, every product should have what we call the labeling and marking requirement. So for example, a cable should have a name. There are cables in the market that do not have any name. They just write electrical cable. Who owns it? We need to trace the product. So you go and you find a cable that has no name. That should send you a signal that this is a possible counterfeit or substandard electrical product. Cables are manufactured with standards. So for example, we have electrical cable standards here. This is a PVC insulated cable for rated voltage.
So there are standards for each one?
Correct. And these standards must be stated by the standard requirement. It must be part of the labeling and marking.
Okay.
Most of the substandard electrical products do not have these values indicated on the product. So that should send you a signal.
Point made there. Let's connect with Stephen Yomo, who is Programs Officer with the Energy Commission. Stephen, thank you for joining the conversation. Please unmute, Stephen, so we can hear you.
Yes.
All right.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. So as you've initiated this drive, tell us so far, what are the gains that have been made and what are you looking forward to in ensuring that a lot more people get into the certification program and that all of us are complying according to the law?
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning to your viewers. Okay, so since 2013, the Commission has certified over 11,000 electricians in the country. And since then, these electricians have been wiring facilities in accordance with the Ghana electrical wiring standards. At the last 2 years graduation for certified electricians, the Ghana National Fire Service has actually indicated that the state of fires that come as a result of electrical wiring installation have gone down. Those kind of fires associated with electrical wiring installations have actually gone down. So these are some of the gains that we've made so far. The reason why we are also here is to sensitize the public on the use of certified electricians, because the law was actually passed to ensure that facilities were wired with standard materials and they were wired in accordance with the Ghana electrical wiring standards. And that is why the law was passed. And so we encourage facility owners to engage certified electricians to do their wiring. When you use a certified electrician to do your wiring, you are sure that issues related to fires, electrocution, and sometimes even excessive consumption of electricity, you are sure that all those risks have been averted. And also, we encourage those non-certified electricians who are out there practicing without being certified by the Commission to come and join. The whole certification process is a kind of what you call justify your inclusion. If you know how to conduct wiring safely in Ghana, come and the technical exams unit will assess you, and then you will become a certified electrician.
Okay. Mr. Yomo, thank you very much for that education. And this is where we'll have to draw the curtains, but very grateful to Stephen, to Nanama, who is with the Energy Commission, and Francis Akbalu, who is with the Ghana Standards Authority. Of course, the education continues as we all seek to comply with the law. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right before we wrap up, a happy birthday to Mrs. Anita Boateng Sam of the Insawam Road Church of Christ and Access Bank. It's from Echo Sam and family. Also a special happy birthday to Honorable Mark Wayongo. It's been a while, aka Army General, former Interior Minister. Happy birthday from all of us here. Happy birthday to you, my beautiful wife, Florence. That is my Ira. Okay, so the Boys Academy. Okay, so that was definitely not from me, but happy birthday to you as well, to all of you. That's how we wrap up this morning on the AM show. Do catch up with us same time tomorrow. Have a lovely day.